Hello and welcome to a Path of Exile video. Uh, I'm playing Earth Shatter on Berserker. I'm in a private league with some friends. For the most part, I'm completely over being sick, but I was sick for over 2 weeks. Still have like some nasal drip, whatever, so if I have to blow my nose, I'll mute my mic. But this is an Earth Shatter Berserker. It is T17 viable, it is uber viable, it is Delirious, and they did change both the little minor passive, and that didn't happen before league launch. This is incredibly OP for tankiness. Incredibly OP. When I swapped, it felt like I literally just like ascended as a jug instead. Like that's how OP the Delirium Ascendancy is. But I'll go over the build. So Divine Shield with a Royal Plate and Replica Soul Tether. Another option to do is to get a Hybrid Armor ES chest plate and basically craft it to be very similar to this. You can fit Spell Suppress into the build, but I don't find it necessary after ascending to that didn't happen. But I may, just because of like the T17 and Uber rippiness, swap to a Suppress setup and use an Armor ES chest. And my axe, it is not that great. This is around like 990 PDPS and like a best in slot triple T1 prefixes Vol Axe with T1 attack speed and like an Elder Slam or a Warlord Slam or whatever slam for like Hinakora Lock style can clearly beat this out. In Trade League, I think you can get this DPS up to around like 30 to 40 million DPS on like bosses, non-Uber. I never checked the Uber DPS that setup could have done. I do think that's possible, and the links are Pulverize, Awaken Brutality, Fortify, Awaken Melee Fizz, Overexert, and Earth Shatter. In the echoes, I'm using Intimidating Cry, Infernal Cry, Auto Exert, and Seismic Cry. Intimidating Cry has to be 20% for uptime capabilities. Faster attacks linked to Leap Slam, General's Cry, Auto Exert, Battle Mage, Vulnerability. Quality on General's Cry does not matter. It only gives you more Mirages, and you're not using this for Mirages whatsoever. You are just using this because it has a base cooldown of where is it? Which war cry is it? General's Cry. Base cooldown of 2.5 seconds, and then the other war cries are like 4.6, 4.57, 4.91, and 4.28. So they're all over the place. Good split between all the different cooldowns, but Intimidating Cry needs to be the lowest it can possibly be. So that's why I'm running a 2120 Auto Exert. I got this from Mysterious Wound Gifts. And then in the boots, I have the Enduring Cry, Rallying Cry, Frostblink with Urgent Orders. For Flask, you just want a Divine Flask as high of quality as you can. It's instant while on low life and grants immunity for bleed. And then the other flasks are all like gain charges when hit. Obviously they're not perfect. For this flask, if you want like the perfect like amount of high uptime, you want gain 3 on a what is it called, the 20% more armor. It is the same value if you can hit the same T1 suffix. In terms of like total armor, you're not gaining really anything with my character and how it's set up, but it is more uptime because that flask lasts like 2 seconds longer. And for the graphs, I am utilizing a Zoff graph with increased attack damage and Graft Blood Stored, and then a Olgraft with the Impale buff mechanic with the Global Fizz. Obviously, if these are like T1 Global Fizz and T1 attack damage, that's obviously more damage for your character. This does compete with the prefix for blood gained from doing the breach mechanic. So unfortunately, if you want more bossing damage, you have to forego that. But if you do get the graft blood gained, I think that's probably better just for the purpose of the league mechanic. And the league mechanic is impacted by the quality of like the quantity in your maps. I tested this personally, and I can vouch that quantity does play a role. So clicking alters for quant before you do breach mechanic is actually a good thing. In this character, I am taking Hardy just because of the better uptime of the recovery. I do think that like Warcry buff effect and Warcry buff duration is pretty good for the purpose of Enduring Cry, but the amount of times where like I feel like this is just better, like when you're interacting with like different NPCs and stuff, like doing betrayal, you're not able to like click Enduring Cry when like you're going around like talking to them. So I just think like for the purpose of like any dot mechanics, like if you have like damage taken during like Flask effect or something from an altar, I think this is just better quality of life for that. Same as like looting, that type of thing. And then for the cluster jewel setup, it is an 8 passive Fizz, Ironbreaker, and Furious Assault. And then I have Master the Fundamentals on the back node. If you need to take this to make the all res work with like a Thread of Hope, then you can take something like that. Additionally, you can always take Diamond Skin for 2 points. So up to you, like which one's better. But this may be something that you have to utilize in order to get enough resistances. I am using this one node specifically because if I don't, then I have 80% cold res without flask up. So that is one little thing that I kind of have to leave in my character in order to maintain my cold res to be within the minimum. I can also take this node for a little bit more damage, but I'd prefer the more life. And then the small cluster jewels are armor, and they have the armor life. So that's how I'm getting more life into the build. And then I am taking the protection mastery for your elementals resistances cannot be lowered by curses, because obviously my elemental res is already really hard to fit in. And then I am also taking corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. For like Cyrus and the Feared, that type of stuff. It's better quality of life because you can't use a corrupted blood jewel. And then for life masteries, rage mastery, it's all the standard like Warcry related things. I don't think personally I need the mastery for 15% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, but that is also an option. You could potentially drop this entirely and run that instead as a mastery. I've also not gotten the rune graph to actually be able to test that. And then here I have the leech mastery for 25% of damage taken recouped as life if leech was removed by filling unreserved life recently, combined with the hematophagy. This is a lot of like life regen and life recovery effects, as well as 40% increased damage with hits against rare and unique enemies. I do not have the destroy on kill. I do not path for slaughter to get enemies killed by your hits are destroyed. I do not find detonate dead to be at all scary. And I also am taking 5% of leech is instant. I am picking up Harvester of Foes for the Impale as well as the percent increased damage, Impale effect, etc. And then over here, I have my massive Thread of Hope with minus 10% to all elemental res. If you get a massive ring, you can divine it until you get the minimum, because this is an Uber drop. So this is 2 Uber specific items, Echoes and the Thread of Hope. The Thread of Hope allows me to get attack leech, because I do not have attack leech on a suffix on my weapon. If I had a suffix on my weapon, then I would drop this point. And then I have Admonisher. This gives you 15% increased damage for each time you've war cried recently. That's like the last 4 seconds. And most of my war cries are around the 4 to 5 second cooldown. And then I have Merciless Skewering. And then I also have this node. And then I have Brutal Skewering, which means impales you inflict last 1 additional hit. Another thing you can do is you can take Courage or Graceful Assault, up to you if you want those things, but those are within Radius, as well as Gladiator's Perseverance. This is also in Radius. The wall leeching is not really applicable to you, but the 10% increased attack speed while on full life, since majority of the time you are on full life, that can happen. Additionally, you can pick up a life mastery like this. You count as on full life while at 90% maximum life or above, because for the sake of like things still costing life, you're not every single instance going to be on full life, as well as Echoes damage being split with Soul Tether. That's how you would be able to get the attack speed out of this. No idea if like that little bit of leech that you would be doing pretty consistently would actually like give you damage. I don't know. That's like some weird skeptical related issues with the character and the build, in my opinion. My Anoint is for Forceful Skewering, pretty cheap Anoint, so you can swap it around on different amulets if you get gear upgrades and whatnot. I would consider this build pretty SSF viable in the current iteration, just because the standard Earthshatter is able to do Ubers, and it is able to do like Wave 15 Simulacrums, and once you get that didn't happen, it just makes the character that much more tanky. You do drop 40% more damage in order to pick up that didn't happen, so you really need good gear in order to make that didn't happen worth it. But you can go to PoE Ninja and you can sort by ascendancies and sub-ascendancies, and you can look at a couple other people that are doing a pretty similar build archetype and see what they're running, see what they're doing, etc. You can get tankier with the spell suppress, but that is like very min-maxy. And I think in order to make that variant a lot better, you would need to drop your Replica Soul Tether. But Replica Soul Tether means that like this damage recoup and the damage recoup on the chest, which is 35% damage recoup, wouldn't really do anything for you. So I don't know if that's necessarily optimal. All that being said, I will run a map. It's just going to be a baseline T16. I'm just trying to farm Junes for like veiled currency. Go into Wildwood, why not? And that's the map. It's not the fastest mapper, but it's very, very safe. Cool. And Agnerod West. I still haven't done Victor Square for challenge. I have been trying to recom weapons, craft weapons with the womb gifts, but I just haven't hit it. But I am in a private league. I'm also rank 1 in XP. So there's that. I throw my body at the wall though in terms of like trying to do stuff for the group, but we've got a lot of people that just started rerolling a lot because of the new Foulborn stuff, and like private league for like the 20-30 people that play, we found like Mage Blood, we found a ton of like random junk, inspired learnings, stuff like that. So in terms of like a private league, I enjoy this little small community, but as a whole, I think the league mechanic is in a pretty good state. The number one thing that I have an issue with is just the amount of blood that you get in comparison to like the amount of womb gifts you get. I have another tab filled with like womb gifts because I just get so many womb gifts in comparison to the actual blood. So I really think that the increased blood gain from your graphs is like pretty mandatory in terms of engaging with the league mechanic. But that's it for this video. Maybe this helps somebody who's playing Earthshatter have like an aspiration in terms of like their character's growth, like maybe they want to make it tanky, or maybe they want to try playing hardcore or something like that. I think this build is definitely an option and worth looking into. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.